Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Grit Life podcast, where we sit down with people who are aspiring for greatness and haven't given up in the process. You know, today we get to talk with someone special who's all about mental power, mapping the mind, using habits and routines to create the future that you live in. And I think that's really important, especially in the times that we live in. So everybody, welcome Margaux.
Margaux.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for coming. You know, this right here is even our attempt of being gritty. And so inviting people, you know, it puts us in a vulnerable place. We have to say, hey, would you come participate in something that we think is special? But not everybody does. So anyone who can show that like respect for what we do, it's very humbling, and we appreciate that. So today, you know, the conversation is obviously about grit. And grit is like passion and perseverance, not giving up, aspiring for greatness. That's something that we continue to practice in our daily lives.
Exactly.
As entrepreneurs. You know, I'm a father, a partner, we have spouses. I mean, like those things take a lot of effort and consciousness and awareness. And that whole journey has been amazing. And I know that is something that you preach, practice, and also teach. So I'm curious, tell us a little bit more about like the niche of how you're approaching this whole journey and helping entrepreneurs reach their maximum potential.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I do right now is my light and my everything.
Okay.
Getting to work with young entrepreneurs in the capacity that I do is truly fulfilling.
Yeah.
I did a lot of other work and had other like businesses before this and was an entrepreneur in a lot of other ways.
Okay.
But this has been something that just lights my soul up. So I work with young entrepreneurs in their 20s, early 30s that are just super ambitious and already have a business going for themselves or have a business idea.
Sure.
And they're looking for how to get to the next step, how to make a worldly impact on a micro level right now. And so I don't work with them in their business, but I work with them on their minds. And so that's where the mindset strategies, you know, looking at the past, is there anything that's holding you back, comes in.
Yeah.
And that manifests in a lot of different forms, but it excites me a lot.
Yeah, it's the most important thing. I mean, like, you can be good at something, and then as soon as you, and I've seen this, and I'm sure you've seen this, literally somebody has some raw talent, right? And they're good at something, and they will get success. But without the core foundation built of having a strong mental, you know what I'm saying? Like rules and guidelines and character and even habits and routines, look, when they hit the success, they're going to either squander it, they're going to mess it up somehow, they won't think they're worth it, so they'll sabotage.
Right.
There's a lot of downfalls that happen just because you got the gumph. You know, it's like getting to the dance is one battle, but then learning how to dance and being good at it is a whole other thing. For me personally, I've been an entrepreneur since I was young. I mean, dropped out of high school, went into like a trade school, Media Tech Institute, and just like always pursued hustles. But man, once you get there, it's like, oh, I got to actually do the work. And then that's a whole new set of mental pressures and tests and things like that. So it is 100%. The most important.
So very important, Margaux. What got you to stay in the path of becoming or being an entrepreneur? I mean, a lot of people, we are ingrained in our mindset of like, hey, go to school, get a good job, get married, traditional, get a house. And instead of like ingraining something like, hey, the mindset, the making sure that your limiting beliefs are erased. Like, what got you to that path, or what got you to stay in the path of entrepreneurship and the mindset of greediness?
Definitely. It started in a way that I never knew that I was going to be doing what I'm doing at a young age until I turned 16.
Okay.
And I got inspired by Tony Robbins and what he was doing.
Sure.
And at that point in my life, I was using my personal power. I was an entrepreneur. I had people around me doing similar things, had a similar mindset, but it was very unconscious. It was very toxic and unhealthy. And that was before I stepped into the world of, like, before I found Tony Robbins, before I was inspired by all of that. I was using my personal power in a very unconscious way. So I, at the time, was going through a lot at home. And so when I was at school and just my normal day-to-day, being sober didn't really do it for me. I had a lot of pain, a lot of things that I was wanting to numb out. And so being in that kind of mindset, I was seeking risk, as we do in entrepreneurship.
Totally.
I was seeking that edge. I was seeking adrenaline. And so that manifested in different forms. And it just spiraled down this path of ending up being, like, started with a party, and then started with more parties. And then started with, you know, meeting a lot of older people. And then that led from one thing to another, to a lot of drugs, to a lot of hanging around people that were in the drug dealing space. And those became my closest people in my life.
That influenced you.
It did. And so I was seeking that edge, I was seeking that adrenaline, I was seeking that risk, but in a way that I wasn't consciously aware of what was really going on.
Right, you're just going through the motions, going through it, living.
And that was at 15.
Okay.
And so I was around, you know, people that were kingpins, and I was around people that were really serious in that world. And so at such a young age, I saw a lot of things that I was way too young to see. And it ended up, you know, there were a lot of wake-up calls from the universe. God, whatever you believe in. For me, it was the universe. And because I was in this comfort zone that I had been in, so this lasted about a year and a half-ish, give or take. Because I was in this comfort zone, the good and the bad of it, I couldn't see out of that reality. And I also couldn't see, are we allowed to cuss on here?
Oh, yeah.
I also couldn't see the shitstorms that just kept coming. And it got to the point where, you know, it started with this idea of let me go party with people that are older than me. Let me try to keep up.
But who doesn't want to try that? But the thing that comes with age is, like, you do that shit and then you be like, yeah, no, I need to, like, step back after a few years.
For
of
sure.
that, 'cause it's like,
and there's levels to it.
Yes, there's levels to this.
And I am somebody that always seeks out the next level. I'm somebody that always seeks out, you know, how can I be better or do more or experience more, now in a conscious way, but then in an unconscious way. So it started with a party, and a year and a half, give or take, later, it ended up with, you know, having a conversation with my dad one day. You know, he's checking in with me, like, what's going on? Right? You've disconnected, you know, you're not talking to your mom and I, like, what's going on? And I remember having a conversation with him where, you know, we were sitting outside in a park, and I look over at him, I'm like, I honestly don't know the reason as to why I'm here. And I really don't understand the purpose of it all. And that was the mindset I was in. That's what I was focused on. And so I created and manifested unconsciously a lot of reasons to validate, you know,
why you were feeling
risking
that
losing
way.
my life and, like, pushing all of these edges to get me to this point of, you know, you've got to stop.
Is it called rock bottom?
Right. So there were a lot of wake-up calls, but one that comes to mind was, again, and I bring up, you know, it started with a party and ended with this, was because anything that we do in entrepreneurship starts with an idea. And then anything that you set your mind to, then you can create, right? That's how people build empires.
I agree.
And so for me, it was this point where I was really close with somebody that was heavy in the drug dealing space. And I saw the behind the scenes of his life. And I saw him, you know, show up to parties and be the center of attention. I saw him show up to parties and people respected him. And I admired that quality about him, that he could connect with everyone in the room. Right? What I do now, I do that in a conscious way, with intention, with pure intentions to serve. But at that time, that's how it manifested. And it got to the point where, just skipping certain details, he got to a place where he owed people money and he couldn't access the money. It was when Bitcoin was coming around. and he couldn't access it, and all of a sudden shit got real, like really real.
Yeah.
And we were associated with this person. And so I started to see, like weapons being talked about and plan Bs being talked about. And I was like, whoa, this is not me.
I didn't sign up for this.
I cannot, I
wanted to
cannot be here anymore.
Yeah.
And so I knew that if we stayed any longer in this place outside of Austin, that we were going to somehow get caught up in something that would be very dangerous very quick.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that was something for me that started to shift my focus towards what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And how can I change all of this? There were a lot of wake-up calls. And then one day I was on YouTube and Tony Robbins popped up on my feed.
Wow.
I'd never heard of him before.
Okay.
And so I was 16 at this time. And so he popped up on my YouTube feed and I saw what he did with a crowd. I saw the way that he served a massive audience. And then he shared, by the end of this year, we'll have fed, millions of homes and families. And for some reason, after spending so many weekends of being numb and forgetting what Friday through Sunday was like, and all of these experiences combined, I finally felt like this pull, like this spark in my soul. And I finally felt like, oh my gosh, this is my reason.
Wow.
Could have been anything,
No,
right?
for
I could have
sure.
seen it and been like, cool, whatever, and moved along.
Yeah.
What a great
But
age to
something-
catch that.
Yeah. And that
Pulled me.
spark. Yeah.
And so my new internal representation in my mind was, how do I get in front of people and serve them and help them somehow? I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what I was going to speak about. The how I had no idea about.
Sure.
But I had this new focus. I had this new mindset, and I realized, wow, looking back in hindsight after I did the work, I'm grateful that I experienced all of that.
Yeah.
Because it gave me the contrast of what I don't want.
Yeah.
And it showed me, if you're focusing on something, it can create a whole world for you.
Yeah.
And if I take personal responsibility for my part in all of that, that it's not their to blame, or it was the partying and it's not me, how do I not repeat that in my life? And that allowed me to just it wasn't 1, 2, 3, but cutting those people out of my life, starting to focus on myself and building myself up by myself, led me down the path of starting to meet entrepreneurs.
Great. And what type of habits, going to a path that you were like, hey, this is not going well.
Yeah.
It's going south. I need to get to the north. I need to continue moving forward.
Yeah.
What type of structure or habits or systems you start creating to get that level of mindset and success? Can you share any type of system or any type of habits that you generated towards getting into the right mindset to get where you want to be?
Yeah. So for me, it started with books.
Okay.
So I started reading The Secret, Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. I just started diving into the self-development world.
Okay.
So that's how I started. And then I started networking. So I graduated early from high school, and I realized that I wanted to build a community, and I wanted to be around people that had their own businesses. I wanted to see what being my own boss was like. I started learning about, oh my gosh, there's a field of potentiality. What does that even mean? What you put out comes back to you. My focus creates my reality. That's crazy. What have I been creating?
Wow.
So started with books. And then networking was huge for me.
Okay, connections.
And then travel.
Yeah.
So I left and I lived in Asia for a while.
Okay, cool.
And I taught English there. And before I moved to Asia, I started my first business. And I met somebody that was selling on Amazon full time. And so I started by saying, hey, I'll buy you lunch. Can I ask you questions? And so that's how I started, was learning from people that were already doing it. And then it led me down different paths.
Wow.
I got something. So
That's amazing.
I'm under the impression that people who don't get to, like what you had was an aha moment, right? Hitting rock bottom. I'm like an epiphany.
Yeah.
I had my wake up calls. I'm sure you had. Everyone has their own versions of it. But I do feel that people who don't get to experience those are robbed of like you said, a contrast or an awareness of life that is very important to proceed forward knowing the playing field that you live in. I mean, there's like,
Yeah.
if you don't know that, you know, things can go sideways really, really fast in the wrong groups of people and making wrong decisions, then you're gonna be like, nah, I can do that. And then, like, again, we know that slippery slope.
Right.
So I have always encouraged, like, I have a younger brother who's like 7 years younger than me.
Yeah.
I always encourage him, man, mess up as much as you can now. Life is all about experiences. You get confidence through experiences. The more experiences you have and you make it through, you be like, you know what, I made it through. I'm pretty confident that I'll make it through the next time. Yeah. But the people that are sheltered, the people who like try to hide from those really raw moments of either shame, guilt, pure foolery, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You rob yourself of like really getting the wake up call. So I think, you know, it's not surprising to be like, you know, I had a moment where I was like, holy shit, I need to change. Because it's important. Once you make that move, then you start becoming conscious of, like you said, well, the way I think controls the way I feel, and the way I feel reinforces the way I think, and then all of that energy and vibration creates an environment that we live in, and that environment controls how we feel and think. And now it's like a perpetual motion of shittery and foolery, and like, why is my life out of control? Why do I feel stressed and anxious? We'll be like, well, bro, your habits, your routines, your prerogative is all messed up. And people in it, you know, you can't lead a horse to water, or you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can tell people like, look, you need habits. You're you know, off here. Like, no, I'm just gonna like keep doing what I'm doing.
Stay comfortable.
You can't help those people.
Right.
So it's cool that, you know, you're at a place to round up people that are acknowledging that it's like, I want to go to the next steps. How do I do that? Unapologetically. You have to have a certain level of selfishness. Like, you have to figure it out.
And grit.
Passion and perseverance. And then discovering what your passion is a whole thing. So no, I think it's awesome. You know, the story is similar to a lot of other success stories out there, right? You had a problem, you found a solution, you're employing new habits and routines. I don't think that's ever gonna stop till the day you die, right? It's all evolution. Process. It's all just continuing to grow as individuals.
Absolutely. And what keeps now the grit? I mean, now that you experience rock bottom and you say, hey, this is not the way I want to be, then you see Tony Robbins and you create habits to get you out of that situation, and you start being towards motivated and helping more people and getting to scale your personal development, help them grow as well. What keeps your mindset continue to be in a way? It's like ready. It's like, hey, I'm going to continue doing this consistently, persistently, and just on and on.
I think it gets exciting when, you know, you said towards motivated. So for people listening, like, there are two ways of being motivated. Towards pleasure or away from pain. And a lot of people that hit rock bottom change because they're away from motivated. They're like, I cannot create this anymore. And so they're motivated by getting away from pain. And then the closer you get towards what you want, the less pain you have. So sometimes you experience inconsistent results or you coast. And then you get reminded of, oh shit, I don't want to go back there again. And then you get motivated again. Towards motivated, like Luis said, is when you're motivated by pleasure. And so I think after having that experience, doing the work, and then realizing that I was super away from motivated for my finances, for my business, for my life because of such a contrast, I was able to do the work around and invest into myself and mentors around how do I get motivated towards pleasure. So now when I continue and I have my grit, it's from a place of almost peace. And like, I'm always willing to do whatever it takes. That's my lock screen, is do whatever it takes. Opportunity is calling, always. So I think that drive never goes away. And now it's like, wow, I can create this. I can serve people in this way. It can be a bigger audience. I can do it in an intimate group. Like I can work with people one-on-one. So I think the more that I've worked on myself, I am now towards motivated. So I get excited about and keep that grit for, you know, coming from a place of calm rather than I'm running away from my past now.
Having the ability to continue to like redefine your future. Like you're saying, like
Yeah.
every time you reach one thing, you're going towards pleasure. So it's like, yo, I'm doing great here. I'm helping this amount of people. Well, I can just help more and in different avenues, different streams, and that's that there. It's never ending. Like you were saying, the journey is never ending.
Yeah.
I find success in one thing. I had one guy on the show. His name's John McClellan, and this guy, he super successful business. Then he starts another business, a hot sauce, and that thing's just like blowing up. He just keeps starting things, and the question to him was like, what makes you think or believe in yourself to like be successful at one thing and then just keep stacking it? Most people are like, I just want to be good at one thing.
Right.
Man, just keep stacking it. And now it's like you got a whole arsenal of passions and successes, and I don't know. I like all that.
Yeah.
It beats thinking negatively. It beats thinking limited.
Right.
In entrepreneurship, most of the time it's not the product, it's the mind of the individual pushing the idea. What can they conceive? What can they materialize?
Absolutely.
There's also people that don't want to stack it.
Oh, okay.
Like you said, like some people just say, well, I just want to do this one thing. And then they may get motivated after that to continue.
Yeah.
But I also meet people and, some in family where it's like they'd rather just go with the flow.
Yeah, right. They definitely out
and in the NLP terms, we talk about being at cause versus being at effect. Cause is like you take personal responsibility for all the results you create, and therefore you can create anything that you desire.
Because you're causing.
Yeah. And then effect is life is happening to you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people where you just have conversations with them and they prefer to not.
Those are the victims.
Right, it's a victim mentality.
Things are happening to me.
Because for whatever reason, right, they're scared of doing the work, they don't want to look at the past, they don't want, whatever it is. So there's also that, you know, and I think this podcast, those that are listening, I think there's something about your character and your personality and your story that continues to create that drive.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Another thing, and I like the conversation. Like, there's no format to this thing. As you say things, more things pop up. But like, how important it is to rewrite the narrative of your life.
Right.
For me, I have had multiple stuck points in my life to where it's like, I have good habits, I have good routines, but the story subconsciously that I was telling myself kept limiting me, and I would get frustrated. And then I found myself like actively putting in more effort. Like, I'm gonna make this goal happen, I know how. And the more I tried to squeeze it, the more it like disappeared and the less it worked, and it was so frustrating. But then I went through a process of rewriting my narrative.
Yeah.
And then things start happening for me, and I start becoming a cause and causing effects in my life.
Yeah.
It's a total different dynamic, but it took rewriting my narrative. Like, things didn't happen to me that got me here, and now I'm in this victim mentality, and I have to like fight the bubble that I was put in.
Right.
Fuck that bubble. I created my own bubble, and I'm floating. And when things happen, no, it's real, man. Can't nobody mess with my frame.
Yeah.
And like that's I rewrote my narrative to be within my frame. And if you don't fit in my frame, good luck.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I have a responsibility to myself to live up to my full potential.
Of course.
It takes investing in yourself and being willing to do the work and being willing to look back at the past first. We don't need to stay there for a long time, but just so that you can understand what may have been unconsciously running so you don't repeat it.
Tell us how to do that. What's a way to help us rewrite or confront the past without getting stuck there?
So I think if you think of anything from your past that still has a charge,
okay,
then it's, in life, scientists say we only process 126 bits of information at a time.
Okay.
And that's our reality. So there's millions and billions and trillions of information and bits and worlds and realities existing. And then the 126 bits that you focus on is what you experience.
Yep.
So if anything from your past has a negative charge, it's taking from your 126 bits unconsciously, or if you're aware of it and you're just ignoring it.
Yep.
and it's taking from being able to consciously create moving forward what you want.
Yes.
So I think it's one at a time.
Identifying those
one at a
specific
time.
points in your past that have the
Yes.
negative charge.
And then in the work that I do, it's not about let's go back to everything. It's more so what has the most charge, that maybe when we work on that, we dive into that, it will release the charge on all these other things.
So are you an energy worker?
I do
work
a lot
the
of work in
energy?
NLP,
Right.
and then other healing modalities and hypnosis.
Okay. The reason I said that, last night my mom called me and she was like, I went to an energy worker today.
Yeah.
And so she explained the whole process, and this lady, she put her like thumb and it read like all of her vitals and it told her what parts of the body.
Oh, that's cool.
were,
I don't
like-
do that. But
Yeah,
that's
okay,
cool.
I was at the energy work, the crystals.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. You know, confronting the past is super huge. And that's a part of grit. You can't be gritty if you're not able to look at yourself and be like, you know what, I need to improve, I need to change that. Another saying that is super important with the whole process is like, not only do you have to know who to be around, because we absorb energies,
Yeah.
right, and habits and all that, you have to know who not to be around.
Yeah.
And like even me and my wife, our whole model for like a whole decade has pretty much been like the cutoff game is strong. Like as soon as we identify that these people have the negative energies and stuff, it's like, bam, we can't allow it because we're trying to protect
Yeah.
the energy that we're trying to create. It's hard enough to create that energy within
I
yourself.
agree.
Then you just like be careless and be like, yeah, come on, and people will be doing stupid stuff. They're trying to get you caught up in trouble,
Yeah.
bad mindsets.
Negativity.
Negativity? No, we can't do
Heck
that.
no.
We can't be friends.
Toxic.
Yeah, maybe later.
Yeah.
No toxicity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the next step for Margaux? What's the next adventure that you are going to take? Tell us a little more about what's the next journey for you, adventure.
Yeah, I am really excited about a retreat that I'm putting together end of September.
Okay.
So it's September 23rd through the 26th. It's going to be a retreat, but it's also going to be a training experience. And it's called Future Calibration Immersion. So essentially teaching, it's going to be an intimate group of 11 entrepreneurs, not including myself, who are coming together wanting to calibrate to the future version of themselves that they may think is 5 years away. How do we make that happen in 3? Or where you think you want to be in 3 years, how do we make that happen in 1 year?
Wow.
Because I have experienced for myself, the people I work with and the people around me grow at exponential quantum rates.
Yes.
Rates that, and when I say quantum, I mean they're not logical. Like they don't technically make sense,
Like 1,
but they
2,
made
3.
these bounds and leaps that all of a sudden you're like, how the hell are you doing that?
Yeah.
Or how did you do that so fast?
Yeah.
Or how did you do that, most importantly, at your age?
Yeah,
And
multiply.
right.
Yeah.
And so bringing in young entrepreneurs to learn the trainings of what Luis, some of the like the seminar you went to, tools from there, from like our NLP certification training to support them in learning a bulletproof mindset so that they can create what they want now. With a bunch of people that are on the same path.
That's
Nice.
exciting.
Very excited.
There's no
Yes.
better
Very, very
investment than
excited.
into yourself.
Of
You
course.
know, so
I
that's
agree,
amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
What I have a question about grittiness. So like for you, what do you think about grittiness?
What does gritty mean to me? I think it's tapping into what we said earlier, being able to do whatever it takes.
Okay.
And also most importantly, no matter what your background is and no matter where you're at currently. Because right now or the past or like the future doesn't matter. It's just like, what are you going to do next?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. And so I think, in sharing, the previous story of, what got me inspired, like even that scared the shit out of me and being able to say on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, I couldn't even have articulated it without getting really emotional and feeling shame and all these things. So I think that for those that are listening, no matter where you're at right now, whether you are what you would, deem as your version of successful or not, and no matter where you came from, as long as you focus on what you want and focus on like, how can I be better in this next step? That is going to create your future. That is something that is near and dear to my heart because for the longest time, I really struggled with how can I go from having been known for certain things in school to not that long after, starting my swimsuit line and then getting into mentoring, like the course progression of it all. I was really scared because a lot of the people that I went to school with still follow me now.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, well, how do I put myself in the control seat so that nobody can say anything that can negatively affect me? Like, how do I just be so raw and so open to where, like, come at me? Like, there's literally nothing.
That's right.
I've said it. Like, it's here. It's like I'm aware of who I was, and I'm no longer ashamed of that version of me,
That's
which
powerful.
allows me, and something I thought of when you said something earlier, and I'm glad it's coming back, is it's a selfish process, and I mean that with no negative connotation in the beginning. Doing the work is like, just focus on you. And then in the bigger scheme of everything, like, it isn't about you.
Yes.
Like, this isn't about me. It's about, like, whoever's listening
Sure.
and whatever they resonate with and how that helps them. So it's like the whole game of, like, everything that you do to work on yourselves, people you bring on the podcast, it's like you're doing the work for you, but it's for other people.
Yes.
And that's why we do what we do.
And if you can become aware of that, it makes it all
it's
beautiful
so freeing.
through the journey.
Yeah.
Like, I know why I'm doing
So
this.
freeing.
Not only for myself, but for others.
Right, because like you said earlier, most success stories, when you chunk up high enough, we've all experienced the same negative emotions, some kind of rock bottom, some kind of trauma, whatever. And then, like, how do you get to the other side? So even if somebody doesn't relate to your specifics in your story, they can understand at least some part of it and connect it to them and use it hopefully to move forward.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And to live a gritty life.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, we can end it there. Thank you, Margaux.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Margaux.
having me.
Appreciate it.